first heard Howard speak at the Ideas Conference in Chicago last year, which is an amazing collection of people with particular expertise and been really inspirational across a broad array of categories. I went to lectures over a 4-day period, and by far and away my favorite of them all was Howard's. And so Andy was coming to Chicago. I wanted him to meet Howard, and we were fortunate enough to get a meeting. And one thing led to another, and so we're lucky enough to have Howard here today. Howard is the president and CEO of Tribeca Flashpoint Media Arts Academy. It's a 2-year accredited college in Chicago that teaches all things related to digital media arts. Howard is also an adjunct professor, was at the Kellogg School at Northwestern. A lawyer by training, he's launched over a dozen startups in the tech space, created over $1 billion of shareholder value. We like to think of Howard as a digital renaissance man of sorts because his expertise crosses so many specific or different categories. From, he's an innovator, which is obviously different than an entrepreneur. He's a programmer, right? He's got a legal background. He teaches, he writes, and so we're really pleased to have him here. He's going to talk to us today about, offer us some comments and thoughts related to social media technology. And so, without further introduction,
great.
Howard.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, thank you again, and I'm glad you're all here. I want to start with some sort of bad news, which is that there's just a shitload of stuff that we don't know anything about today. But that's okay. That's okay, because the good news is that tomorrow that won't matter, because a whole nother group of things will also be new, and we also won't know much about that. But the best news, sort of old news, new news, is that in the old days, not so long ago, you had these choices, and it was you could be fast, you could be cheap, or you could be good. You could pick any two. Today, fast and cheap, this whole process of disruptive innovation, of rapid prototyping, of failing fast, that's where we live. And the really best news is we don't even have to make the kind of choices that we used to have to make on quality, on all these kinds of things. It's an amazing world, tremendously low barriers to entry, same barriers to success, same issues in that respect. But it's exciting, and I'm excited about it. One of the other things that's really interesting is how things that we've relied on and sort of believed in for a long time are changing in terms of their behavior. We used to understand virality as like a complete home run, that if you could launch something and it would go viral, that would be great. We used to measure that in two ways. One was sort of how fast is it being adopted and how many people are they telling. And the curve used to perform in a ramp, and then it used to sort of stabilize. And this area was called safe landing. It meant that we were still in pretty good shape. Here's what's happened that's sort of an amazing change. The rate of abandonment is about 10 times faster than the rate of adoption in terms of new apps. And so, what works today and what's hunky-dory and we're all celebrating, tomorrow we're toast. And this is a great sort of quote from, Zuckerberg, who said, nothing is the future forever. Whatever it is, it's a moving target. And that's what makes it exciting. That's what creates a lot of these opportunities. But it's a tough game. So I'm going to talk about 5 or 6 different themes. One is just this whole idea of riffing and of rapid sort of prototyping and following and fast following, and how quickly whatever you're doing is going to be replicated, knocked off, done cheaper, done faster, done better. Group pricing and that whole sort of world of that. And in terms of, by the way, this whole idea of fast following, one of the things, and I write a column every week in Inc. magazine and for the Inc. blog, and this week it's about brand. And what's interesting is how much insulation brand used to provide, and today, so my example in that thing was Scrabble, and if anybody remembers what Scrabble was, it's words with friends, right? And the idea is that brand doesn't give us the kind of protection it used to. What gives us protection is speed, and speed even more than size, speed even more than anything else that's out there. When I talk about group pricing, we're in Chicago, which is where I'm from and where our school is located. The home of Groupon, basically Groupon is over. But crowd everything is coming, and I don't want to be totally nasty about Groupon, so I'll talk a little bit more about Groupon in a second. But here's the sad thing about the crowd. The crowd is pretty much crap, okay? So we're going to see that we're going backwards from the crowd too, and what 2 million people care about doesn't matter. What matters is what the people you care about. And so that's an ongoing sort of process. Badges and this whole issue of the badgification and the gaming of the web. We're a game school too. And so immersive and interactive media is a very powerful tool, but it's moving from games, which are absolutely the canary in the cave, to sales, marketing, education. Everything is going to be driven by these kinds of concept of a mission, a challenge, the technology, measurement, failure, constant failure. In playing a game, you fail 80% of the time is what you're doing while you're playing a game, and yet it's completely addictive, okay? And so there's a lot around that that's going to change the way we do training and education. But badges are going to be important in another respect. We're going from a world where your credentials are going to be different. It's not going to be a sheepskin. It's not going to be telling somebody what you know. It's going to be demonstrating what you do and what you can do. And so we're going to see all kinds of new movements and certifications and people that are going to say, if you have this badge, that's actually more valuable than 4 years at Podunk U. Because I don't know what you learned at Podunk U, but if you have this badge, I'm willing to say you're a Ruby on Rails programmer, because nobody gets that badge who isn't a qualified programmer. Context, this idea that context is more important, that if you hit me with the right message at the right time, I'm yours. If it's the wrong time, it doesn't matter what you've got to say. So with GPS, with the fact that we're all now connected, this whole idea of connectivity, proximity, relevance, location, all of these are new dimensions of experience and new dimensions of how we communicate with customers. And lastly, location. A whole nother, really a fourth dimension of how we're able to do everything from GPS fenced offerings. So we now can offer threadless t-shirts, but only if you're in the venue at a Pitchfork concert. You can buy it online right there, but if you step outside of the park, the fence locks you out. So stadiums, auditoriums, conventions, all those kinds of things. Location is going to be a really important component of what's going on. Eavesdrop is a Chicago-based company. It's sort of Foursquare, but vouched for Foursquare because it's location-based, and it gives you the opportunity to sort of comment on what's going on in real time at locations. And it's organized by location, not so much by you. So if you want to check out what's happening at a certain location, you can now go there and see real-time comments about what's happening. So I mentioned Groupon. We use Groupon. But here's the thing about Groupon, and here's the thing about a lot of new businesses that are out there. It's going to be right for some people, but one size is never going to fit all again. And so when we think about Groupon, we use it for our summer camp because an incremental 50 or 100 students is just gravy, right? So the test, when you're looking at any kind of group pricing, any kind of discount pricing, is pretty basic. One, make sure it's additive. Make sure it's additional revenue. Make sure it's new customers. You know, in the restaurant business, we say, you know, fundamentally, Groupon is a bad bet. It's a bunch of cheapies, not even foodies. It's like 60 days of you front everything, and then you hope you get paid by Groupon. So you want it not to drive away existing customers. You want it to not take capacity. So you can't be in a business that's size constrained or space constrained. You don't want to front a lot of cost and then hope that it works out and hope that you get paid. And then lastly, if you're short on cash, this is not a good bet, okay? If you have fixed costs, if all of this is there and you're just adding bodies and every bit of it is incremental revenue, still makes a lot of sense. So I want to talk about basically 6 things. First is this idea that today in a world that we call hyper-personalized, where we know everything demographically about everybody, and believe me, we do, we're now moving on to knowing what you're interested in and being interested in what you're interested in, because that's predictive behavior. And so we're going to talk about that. talk about the fact that in the real world today with real-time and high-velocity computing, we know what you're going to do before you know what you're going to do. And so we're building services that respond to that environment. The bad news, I said the crowd is crap. It's still sort of a tonnage world, but we're moving slowly toward curation. We're moving back to a world where value is going to be associated with commentary, and it's going to be not simply, you know, brute force assembly, but it's going to be editorial value. The crowd, again, we want people who are important influencers and not simply people that are easily influenced. And so sheer tonnage is a really bad bet. Video everything. And I can't tell you how the world has changed. I mean, but you know, there are 4 or 5 providers now of 15-second videos, and they're just taking over the world. To take a photograph of an event is such old news now. You know, it's now, I'll send you a video, and you're going to see more and more of that. And then lastly, the whole idea of a workplace is changing, and we call this the porous workplace, which means it doesn't matter where I am, okay? Real time is much more important, and the ability to gather resources is much more important than real place. Real place doesn't matter at all. So, interest, number 1. This is the Wayne Gretzky thing about skating, right? You skate to where the puck's going to be. It doesn't do any good to chase the puck. And so interest data, this is what Google grabs, 57 different criteria every time you do a search. And honestly, what's going on in the world is personal information and data and interest information is going to drive everything. It's going to be a competitive advantage for every single kind of business that's out there. This is what Facebook collects. Your phone collects even more data. This is what Facebook knew about us in 2005. This is what Facebook knew in 2010. This is what Facebook knows now, okay? Why? Because they're unbelievable engineers, and they're really, really smart. But the biggest change is that Facebook, when you go back and think about this, this is the famous "you can't be a dog on the internet" thing, you know. So the biggest change that Facebook has made in our lives is that you pretty much have to be who you are now. And that was a major change, and it has huge implications for privacy, but more importantly, it has huge implications for marketing and the ability to identify and attach ridiculous amounts of highly personalized information to the population that we're targeting. So there's still a bunch of fraud going on. There's a bunch of, you know, armchair travelers and wishful thinkers. There's a bunch of fake likes. There's a bunch of phony things going on Pinterest. All of that is true. It almost doesn't matter, you know, in some real senses, but it's going to shake out, and it's going to shake out by this increasing insistence. And by the way, this is all before financial and medical informations migrate. Once your profile is life mission critical and financially relevant, nobody's going to cuck around with their profile. It's going to be who it is, and you know, it's going to be locked down, and it's going to have to be that way because all of those things are central to a lot of virtues and a lot of things that are way more important than just sort of privacy. This you may have seen. This goes back a little way. This was the dad that kept complaining that his daughter was getting all these pregnancy things, and it turned out she was pregnant. He didn't know, but Target knew. So here's amazing and how fast this idea of autocatalytic change is. That right now, waiting for the results of a search is too late. Okay, it's sort of playing catch up. So I love data, but the idea is if we can tell what you're looking for and supply that to you, we're ahead of the game. We're ahead of the people that are waiting to get search results based on AdWords or whatever it is, and then go chase you. That's the kind of micro-competitive environment that interest data is now heading toward. So what are you sharing? You know, we're a school, okay? So we target on juniors and seniors in high school. And all I can tell you is we have engines now that go into Facebook and pull out every junior or senior in high school who's sharing information about digital media or recording or film. And those are the people we target. And we don't waste a penny on chasing random lists, SAT lists. You know, sure, everybody in the world took an SAT. It doesn't buy you jack shit, right? So, but this kind of precision and accountability is where marketing is headed and where this kind of data now permits us to go. I mentioned before that the Facebook guys are amazing engineers. This is all about social design, and it's all about the idea that, this little button here up in the corner, the Connect with Facebook button, you know, the epitome of, you know, change, one of the smartest things ever. We're lazy, you know, do we really want to re-enter all this stuff, or do we want to press one little button, okay? So suffice it to say, 9 million plus applications now enabled through Facebook Connect. And it's like an amazing process, because more than, right now through Open Graph, more than 1 billion pieces of data on a daily basis are flowing through this system. They're the hub. They're really the platform for all of these businesses. And why wouldn't you do this? Because 2 lines of code take care of the heavy lifting for a startup on authentication, personalization, membership, all of this stuff. It's just built in because you just piggyback on Facebook, okay? And when they apply that fire hose and when they apply that focus to applications, they're starting to introduce different applications. You can sort of see how explosive the growth can be. It's in the tens of millions in a matter of weeks when Facebook puts something on the front page and promotes just about anything. But the real significance is they now own the only crystal ball in town, okay? And they are able to see adoption. And adoption and maintenance and sort of use and engagement is why you would spend $1 billion on Instagram. And if you think Instagram was a lot of money, you don't understand how quickly it's been validated. But today it has more users than Twitter, okay? And those users are spending way more time. And it's, you know, so powerful in terms of an acquisition that they're actually trying to now shut out competitive connections and things. And this has forced competitive reactions. So if you just saw that Twitter added Avery, you know, a really interesting company and a sort of a great startup story in its own. But the idea is Facebook is able to tell you what's going on across this entire world of competitive matrix, and it's going to continue. So they keep thinking of incentives and reasons and really smart things, more verbs. The want button is coming. I mean, how tough is it for a marketer if 1 billion people are raising their hands saying, I want this, right? It's not that tough, right? So marketers should get paid nothing now. Anyway, a whole bunch of companies testing the want button already, and a whole bunch of companies understanding that you need to make a serious commitment to this universe that's now Facebook. In fact, L'Oreal just announced 400 people do nothing but create content for Facebook on a daily basis. And the timeline and all of these different things, right now about within the world of Facebook, people are spending about 40% of their time in the news feed, just a single application within the Facebook world. This is sort of an interesting thing, and I'm going to make a prediction, and then we'll see whether I'm right or wrong. But my prediction is this is one of the stupidest things in the world, that there would be a Facebook phone, not because there isn't an appetite for the news feed, because what they cleverly have done is they put the news feed on the front of your phone. And I've often said that if you talk about wasted real estate, this amazing thing that we look at 400 times a day, which is the front of our phone, the fact that nobody figured out how to put advertising there until Facebook did it is amazing. So huge demand for that information, okay? It's the scarcest real estate that there is, so to be in control of it is very powerful. But here's what's wrong with this whole strategy, okay? You don't need to own the cow, okay? It's just an application. To say that they have to be in the hardware business is like a throwback to the ancient times. Instead, you make a ubiquitous application, you put it across all the platforms, and then people can opt in or not as they wish, because the value of the service is, in fact, quite powerful. The idea that they have to work with HTC, which is probably, you know, number 4 or 5 in terms of even good devices, is probably not a really smart bet. But we'll see. We'll see. I could be wrong. It would be a really frightening prospect. But they just bought Karma also, and this is really a confirmation of interest data. Karma is a gift site. So gift sites now, Facebook Gifts, are really significant because they pay sort of, you know, double benefits. They tell you a great deal about the interest of the gift giver and a tremendous amount of information about the recipient as well. And so the idea that there's 170 million people just in the US and that they're bringing in all kinds of third parties as business partners, and that they have two-way information. And then the real nirvana is credit cards. Okay, as soon as Facebook is really credit card enabled through these gifting programs, then the spend levels and the sort of the revenue streams and models of Facebook will really explode. So to give you an idea of how powerful that is, Amazon now generating about 30+% of their sales from this kind of a tool. This kind of a tool saying, I know what you bought, I know what you're interested in, here are my recommendations, and the smarter and better those things get, the more powerful they become as revenue drivers. So, and the engineering continues. So this is sort of an old screen. Up here was a button that you may have remembered seeing. There used to be something called allow, don't allow on Facebook pages. They thought that was too much choice for the consumer. Okay, so now those buttons are disappearing in favor of only one button, and that button says play. Okay, it's like, you know, you're here. What else would you do? Click the button, right? So they offer the consumer no choice, and these kinds of little slices and dices and little changes really play on human nature. It's an amazing amount of engineering going into the fact that fundamentally we would just as soon default. We don't want to go 3 steps backwards. We don't want to do all of this stuff. So they continue to be really smart. This is the biggest one, graph search, which is amazing because of the following thing. We know when we initiate search, the primary requirement is we have to sort of have an objective in mind. And search is okay, but increasingly search is problematic because as the search engines try to do a better job of responding to our search inquiries, they keep narrowing the information they're giving back to us. And there's a book called The Filter Bubble. And what it says is we're getting dumber and dumber in terms of search because it's become not a window on the world, but a mirror. And it's feeding back everything we already know because that makes it feel like we're very successful. It's saving us time, all right? But from a discovery standpoint, that sucks, okay? And so what Facebook figured out is way better to have open-ended discovery and just to take all the wraps off and say, hey, you want to find out, you want to see pictures of your friends in the first 10 years of their life? I mean, that's pretty interesting, right? You couldn't say search for Bob and, you know, in this age and this everything. So more and more information. Again, driving constantly the desire of people to improve and increase the amount of information on these things, but fundamentally aggregating the information, filtering the information, prioritizing the information, making it available to us in very amazing new ways. And you'll just see some of the engines that they've built off of that in a couple of minutes. And they're all commerce images. So bottom line of all this, I love the Google guys. They're a bunch of engineers. Fundamentally, Google says, based on what you did before, I'm going to use some algorithms to project where you're headed. Facebook has a much easier job. It's like the want button. How about it? You know, here's what you're trying to do. Here's what you want. Here's what you're looking for. It's a little easier. So think of Google as a rearview mirror, and Facebook is sort of a sniper scope, okay? This is sort of the world that we're dealing with today. And that's why a huge amount of display advertising is migrating. It's in the 30–40% of all display advertising now running through Facebook. So, so Google is there. It's not going away. Google Plus is really interesting, but optimizing for Google is like yesterday's news, all right? And let me give you some examples of where personalization is headed. This is a project we did for Bono. We built this digital quilt, but it turned out that after about 80,000 people get on the quilt, okay, it doesn't really help very much because you're trying to get people focused on something really important, which is I don't care about 80,000 people. I want to know what my friends did in terms of this activity or this event or whatever it is. So you have to think in terms of niching out everything. You have to think in terms of filtering. The information overload and the flow is ridiculous and it's overwhelming. So what you do is, under this application, we built a filter that says, show me just what my friends are doing. All right, now, let me show you what Ticketmaster has done. It's pretty cool to, you know, see a map for a concert or something like that, but it's super cool to see where your friends are sitting, okay? And it drives amazing commerce. And you can also not let your parents know whether you're going to the thing or not, so you can turn that off, right? But the idea of my friends are going is peer pressure, it's information, it's just an astonishing thing. And that's just the beginning of all kinds of different things. This is Amazon's integration with Facebook. So it's a recommender engine. This top line says, here are all the people you know whose birthdays are coming up. And I don't even like my brother, okay, but this is reminding me that his birthday is coming up soon. And I'm an asshole if I don't send him something, right? It's because it's just 2 clicks, right? And so shame on me. But personalization is just beginning. We did the artwork for Tyra Banks's new book. And, you know, that may seem like an oxymoron to you. But suffice it to say, it's, you know, it is what it is. She's so close. This is not a typo. This says fams. She's that close to her fans. They're almost like family members. They're not just fans, right? So anyway, we were able to launch a personalized video from Tyra to 3.3 million Twitter followers. You know, the day of launch of the actual book, virtually unreadable, by the way, and part of a trilogy. So it's not over yet, okay? But #1 on Barnes & Noble, #2 on Amazon, okay? So for Obama, we're able to tell each person what they want to hear. Both parts of that very significant. Mass customization, just what you want to hear, okay? So we were able to go out the 3 weeks before the election to friends, but tightly bound friends, not random friends, tightly bound active friends, principally women, principally moms in certain states, and message them with a campaign that said your friends, the people you're connected to, the people you care about are already voting. And so we had an integration with Facebook and with Foursquare, and that peer pressure, we think that moved about 2 million votes in terms of the technology associated with the last few weeks of the campaign. What's this, 80% plus? It's the likelihood that with 1 billion people on Facebook, they can actually project which 2 people are going to change their status to dating, okay? Now, that's what they admit they can do. Who the hell knows what magic lurks in the secret bowels of Facebook? But anyway, Facebook Marketplace, if you know my identity, you know where I am, you know what I'm interested in, you know that I want to buy something, and you even provide a currency. Amazon has a new coin currency. Facebook has credits. It's pretty powerful. And so commerce is just beginning to move. Walmart, people think of Walmart traditionally as sort of hidebound. All right, well, here's a flash. Walmart has 8,500 individual pages. Each store in the world has a Walmart page because commerce is local, okay? Because Facebook is its own world. And so there are stores being built at a ridiculous rate, 170,000, probably 200,000 by now, stores built on Facebook, and it's accelerating. Everybody needs to be there. This is really instructive. So this is FedEx, basically saying you don't have to leave Facebook to send a FedEx package. But here's the most operative line that says no need to even leave the site. That's the message. The message is, I know you're there. I know this is where you're conducting your life for all intents and purposes, and you got to be there. If you're not where your customers are, you know, basically you're nowhere. So that's sort of part one. An interesting part of this also is that we used to divide the world into Facebook was personal, LinkedIn professional, Twitter was sort of a current information channel. And what's happened that's very interesting is Facebook is way ahead in terms of job search already, way ahead of LinkedIn. Twitter is catching up very rapidly. About 1/3 of everybody who are sort of quasi-Gen Yers are friends with their employers. Yeah, pretty amazing. And if you just saw this, there's a lot of buzz now around 140-character resume, that people are using Twitter to get that information out there. And I'll just tell you as an aside that this is not as ridiculous as it seems, because the volume of information, again, is one of these things where employers don't know what to do with 200 three-page resumes. They don't know what to do. If you do the math, nobody's got a spare 40 hours a week to read random resumes. And so everything is opting in favor of filtering, everything is opting in favor of speed, everything is opting in favor of precision targeting in order to save time and be effective. So why do we do a lot of this? Why are we increasingly all sharing more and more information about ourselves? Because we're lazy, okay? And it's only going to get worse, okay? It's estimated that we'll all sort of cave, even, you know, grandparents and all these people say, I'll never do this or that. The minute their grandkid wants to FaceTime with them or wants to send them a message or tell them a story or things like this, everybody moves in this direction. But when I say we're lazy, the idea is, let's make a deal. The idea is if you save me time or money or make me more productive or increase my status, these are deals, okay? And eventually you'll calculate and determine the trade-off. You'll figure out what is driving me. My friends are there. I've already invested a lot of time and energy. I'm engaged. But the biggest thing is money. The biggest reason that this works is money. And here's why. This is a chart that I did a zillion years ago. But it's pretty instructive, and it's something that everybody should understand in terms of customer value over a period of time. The lifetime value of customers is a huge driver of a lot of analysis now that we're understanding about engagement and hanging on to customers and in how many different ways a customer becomes increasingly valuable over time. So a lot more energy today is moving from the front end of the game, which is customer acquisition, which is really tough, really noisy, really costly, to deepening the engagement and the spend of your existing customers, turning them into zealots, turning them into deeper buyers, turning them into long-term customers. And so we're seeing a lot of stuff around things like Belly. And these are all sort of frequent flyer, customer engagement, you know, things that permit you to tighten and incentivize and lock in the connection with customers. And so you're going to see more and more companies in that part of the sort of the sales funnel competition going on. This is another trade that we make every day, and it's getting so more so. You've probably seen the ads for this. So Progressive and Allstate and State Farm now say, if you put in this little device that tells me whether you're a good driver or not for 30 days, and you are a good driver, shame on you if you speed during those 30 days, because then you're screwed. But if you're a good driver, I can reduce your insurance rates. It's a deal. Let me surveil you for 30 days, and I can maybe save you some money. That's a trade, okay? Those are the kinds of things that we're increasingly willing to do. Here's the Kindle. Okay, the Kindle has a bunch of ads. But they figure at Amazon that those ads are worth about 20 bucks. So if you pay them 20 bucks, your Kindle won't have ads. Okay, it's a straightforward deal. It's like you want to unsubscribe from the ads, pay us one time, and you know that's the subsidy, and then we'll do that. So the New York Times just had this article. It's sort of an interesting, all kinds of tests around will people give up their privacy and how much and how do they value their privacy. By and large, if we have private information, we're not inclined to part with it, although we'll do it for a price. If we don't have it, we're utterly indifferent about providing it to people. So, and by the way, new services, the beauty of riffing and iteration is every time you turn around, there are services that help you get stuff off of Facebook, that clean up your privacy, that tell you which service is tracking you and how much of your information is available and how to shut those things off. So all of that is growing up around interest data, personal information, privacy, number one. Number two, this idea of intent data and the ability to use high velocity computing to know before you know and to take where you're headed and leverage that before it's happened, okay? And so what that has generated are the ability to take these massive populations that never existed before, hundreds of millions of people aggregated for us in all these big pots, and go against those pots to do amazing things. So you may have read this, that Orbitz finally fessed up to the fact that if you come into Orbitz on a Mac, they send you more expensive ads than if you come in on a PC. It's just a statement about affluence. It's just a thing that they've decided, that you're more wealthy, and so the ads were more expensive. And when I say ads, these are hotel rental rate offers, okay? This is Safeway, and in real time, the individual prices of stuff are changed while you're shopping. Now, do they give me the best price on Kleenex? Okay. No, I'm already a Kleenex buyer. They give the Charmin guy the best price on Kleenex because they want to move that person. Okay, so in real time, on a per product basis, they're able to change that stuff. Local Offer Network, Chicago-based company, in the 30 milliseconds that an ad and a web page loads, they can personalize the offers being made to you. This starts the first time you visit the site. No history, nothing else. The first time you visit the site, they have personalization capabilities in that regard. You know, you're seeing a lot of different things. This is sort of an interesting new deal where they're taking celebrity pictures, they're making them interactive. Basically, they liked her jacket, okay, so they're able to go out and supply something that more or less looks like the jacket, tie it and piggyback on the interest in that celebrity photo, do that all in real time as soon as you're watching that photo. So this is what's going on. There's more and more emphasis on watching what you're doing, going into these massive, massive databases. And so this says if you leave Facebook and go shop at a site and come back, I'm going to accompany your return with this little reminder that you didn't buy those great looking shoes when you were on this site, okay? And again, more and more companies around this whole thing, basically using cookies and traffic behavior to supply real-time advertising pitches, highly, highly effective, very, very significant, in part because of this, amazing ability to deliver your creative against your customers in real time, by the byte, on an individual basis, and anonymously. A lot of companies are concerned they don't want to send a customer list to Facebook in order to have it matched up with the Facebook world. So Facebook has very cleverly figured out how to have sort of a DMZ in the middle. You get anonymized information, but Facebook is able to append information based on the behavior of your specific customers to your offers without them knowing who your customers are from a personal standpoint. It's a really material change in that. Talking about the Twitter world, the Twitterverse, a lot of people make light of Twitter just in general. People don't understand. Big companies, increasingly, 60 or 70% of the Fortune 500 companies don't respond to tweets from their customers. Ridiculous. But, you know, these are your customers. If you have no life, by the way, I recommend this site called Twist Story. And by the way, there's a lot of sites here, so as a favor to the Great Oaks guys, rather than having 4 million people call them, I'll send you a list of the URLs and you can put it up somewhere or you can share it with everybody who came. But Twist Story is a site that is indicative of how these information flows work. So you go to the site, you put in a word, let's say we put in the word wish, and it immediately begins feeding you from the 65 billion tweets a day, every tweet that used that word. Okay? Every tweet that used wish, every tweet that used think, every word that used love, okay? And it's pretty compelling, and it's also very, this is why I say if you have a life, don't get started on this, because it's really hard to turn it off. But imagine this kind of surveillance on your product name, or on your name, or on competitor information, to see these kinds of conversations in real time, maintained and driven and tracked in very efficient fashion. So twiststory.com. But here's the real thing. It's become ever increasingly easier to bitch about stuff on the web, and it's really significant. You probably saw Reebok just fired, you know, one of their prime music guys because there was an outrage about some of his language and some of his raps. So griping and complaining is now fully automated. It can be done in an instant, okay? It's totally ridiculous. And here's what's worse. In this world, a hashtag in 30 seconds can turn into a bash tag. It's really that frightening. And major companies have shifted campaigns, directions, abandoned investments, all this kind of stuff based on the velocity and the volume and the immediacy of this kind of exchange of information. And so that's really one of the most significant things about the web today. Sure, it's low cost, and sure, it's immediate, but that's not what's most material. What's most material is today we can measure and account for just about anything, and that's a huge change, and that's so important for companies like startups with limited resources to be really, really smart about the way you reach people and to demand this kind of accountability and to help build systems like this. So you've all seen this little thing up in the corner. This is the redirect, but here's what you don't know about it. What it's doing is an amazing thing, okay? You only pay if somebody actually watches the video, okay? If they click out, you don't pay. And so somebody has already figured out that just saying somebody saw something is not as important as somebody actually paid attention to it, or somebody watched it, or somebody engaged with it. And so more and more tools are growing up that permit us to do a lot of analysis and make a lot of sense in real time around advertising spend. And there's this great quote from John Wanamaker who said, 50 years ago probably, half of my advertising is wasted, I just don't know which half. Okay? Today, none of your targeted marketing, none of your ad spend should be wasted because we can tell everything. We can tell who likes us, who hates us, and who's undecided. The classic Casey Stengel, right? He said the key to being a baseball manager is keeping the people who hate your guts away from the people who haven't made up their mind yet. So we can now look at the channel, who loves us, who hates us, who's indifferent, who are the big talkers, what are the channels they're using. All of this stuff is available. So why would you spend anywhere but where the conversations related to your business with your customers are going on? That's the kind of capability we have now. This is a survey we did for AT&T. When Verizon was coming out as the second vendor of the iPhone, AT&T was really worried for good reason, right? AT&T should roll over and die, okay? So they were worried about how many people would leave AT&T for Verizon as soon as an alternative service was available. And so the world broke down into people who were happy, people who were leaving if it was 2 cans and a string. I mean, they were prepared to leave AT&T, and people in the middle. Now, what this permitted AT&T to do is clearly to spend against the middle, to take 100% of the spend and spend against the middle, the targets, the people on the fence, instead of the people who were either already in bed with you or the people who were long gone, right? Much smarter. This is taking the Twitterverse, and this is some social instruction. So this tells you how and when breakups occur. All right, so bad April Fool's jokes, missing anniversaries, Valentine's, very significant. Nobody wants to take their boyfriend or girlfriend, ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, home on winter break or for spring, so a lot of breakups occur right before school holidays. Nobody wants to be alone on Christmas Day, all right? So this is the kind of stuff, I mean, we can tell the mood of the whole country, okay? We can tell amazing things, and so now you're going to see all kinds of new services grow up that are basically surveying capability, answers for questions, polling tools. All these kinds of companies are new methodologies for using these millions of people and in real time doing research around what their interests are and how they react to these things. Nobody listens to Roger Ebert, who passed away just recently, but to the movie critics anymore, because we can take a snapshot on Wednesday night of millions of people and find their reactions. In fact, you're going to see theaters now that are going to have sections, instead of telling you to turn off your phones. This is something at the film festival we're dealing with right now. We've concluded that the word of mouth is more important for people saying whether they liked or didn't like these films than having them wait for hours after the films, a lot of these things that are previewing. So there's actually going to be sections where you can tweet during the film, that maybe toward the back of the theater or whatever, but this stuff is overcoming a lot of the traditional things that we had. Now, I'm going to show you next the most important advance, especially for us older guys in technology, in recent technology. This is called runpee.com, and it tells you when during the movie to go pee, okay? And it tells you that in this segment, here's what happened, and it's really not that interesting. It was sort of a smarmy love scene. It wasn't that hot, So runpee.com, highly recommended. All right, So anyway, on to the next. All right, this idea of noise and the fact that we've got to get control of sharing. Interest data, certainly important, but Pinterest, is exploding. It's great. It's highly, valuable. And the main reason is the amount of time people are spending on these sites. It's multiples and huge multiples of the time they're spending elsewhere. But what's really being shared? A lot of fraud, a lot of trick traffic, a lot of fake marketers. Once it's not authentic. I mean, Blogola and all this kind of stuff is going on now. So these sites have a half-life of credibility and authenticity that's pretty finite. You have to be really careful about that whole world. This is another very important tool. You've all been at a bar. You create some factoid, okay? And this lets you take that factoid and generate a citation that looks like it appeared on Wikipedia. This is amazing. Citationneeded.com, okay? Hey, it's on Wikipedia. Of course I'm right. Totally fake. Totally fake. All right, sorry. Anyway, so this idea, though, of bullshit is really significant because we are going to see more and more curation, more and more stuff around Google+. I mean, I think Google+ is very challenged right now, but they're very subversive. And this is the message. It's like you use Google search, you use Google this, you use Google that. We keep making it easier to share. We keep doing this. Yeah, we understand nobody wants to migrate 2,000 friends into Google circles, but we're sneaking up on you. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But the real gist of this is curation, the idea that we're going to go backwards several steps. These are the guys that started Twitter. So this is Jack Dorsey. Called Medium, highly curated, very limited access, going to slowly grow, and it's going to turn out to be commentary by people you care about and whose opinion you value about things that are valuable to you, okay? And so Kumbaya is another site where people are aggregating, but the difference is gatekeeping. The difference is more and more of these new sites are saying, I'm going to have to do some monitoring. I'm going to have to do some moderation. I'm going to have to do some gatekeeping. And so you're going to see all the newspapers take this step backwards. You're going to see a lot of different brands take this step backwards. It's going to look like it's a free-for-all, but it's going to be edited. And the reason for that is that these collections, these aggregations of people around communities are very, very powerful. And we know, in fact, that just because you get together and talk about sports, there are a whole lot of other implications for that across other product lines, across other kinds of activities. And so we're now building models that say that people who love Miller and are really crazy about basketball, here are 3 other things that we can now impute in the millions of behaviors, all based on the ability to generate these personas within these communities. We talk about the connectivity and sort of this idea of constant connectivity. Our devices are getting smarter and smarter. Everything going forward is going to be connected. Everything is, in fact, growing at a rate that far exceeds what anybody estimated. And it's here to stay, and everything that computes is going to be connected. And so the trick is all about the fact that if you have these devices that are very specific, and understand I mentioned this before, but your phone is a lot more valuable to us as an identification device than desktop cookies, because we don't really know who's sitting in front of the desk. But we have a much higher propensity to know who, in fact, is using that phone. And so we call them now mobile trackers. We don't really, that happen to make phone calls. But basically, they're for us to keep track of you, your movements, your activities, everything that you're doing, your commerce. Increasingly valuable. In Israel, a company called Trendit has melded census data with cellular data. This is how they measure crowds. They don't guess. They don't fly overhead and hope that there's this many people there. So this is Prague. This is during the day at Prague. This is in the evening at Prague. These are the tourists in Prague, all based on the ability to aggregate who you are with where your cell phone is, and to start to measure crowds, to do traffic movements, to do predictive behavior kinds of things, location analyses. All these things are going to grow out of connectivity. This is a device that's smart enough to know when you're looking at it, and it turns off the display when you're not looking at it. When you look at it, it turns on. This is shopping in Japan. You know, while you're waiting for the train, you take pictures. It's at your home when you get home. All kinds of what we call proximity-based nudge commerce, or, you know, sort of snacking commerce. Here's a few more things you can buy. Real-time couponing. All of this kind of activity is just going to increase. I mentioned this before. In a geographic area, we can actually offer things to you that are limited, geo-limited, based on the technologies that are available. We can project offers into the common mall spaces. So right in front of the Gap, we can have an offering from Land's End, things like that. You know, they're like, where is it exactly? You know, so interesting new kinds of virtual showcases and virtual offerings are coming. These are leashes. This is a great thing. You throw it into the dryer when you're doing your drying, and when the rotation stops, it calls your cell phone. It says, come get your laundry. It measures moisture, it measures rotation, measures a lot of different things. It can be programmed to do just about anything. But this is my favorite. So we've all moved, right? We've all given our precious possessions to a bunch of guys with no teeth and hope that they show back up. Okay, so this is a box that has a little GPS device in it. You give it to the mover along with the load, and it tells your cell phone all during the move where your load is. Okay, so it's made it this far, it's made it this far, it stopped for a day, you know, it's so very interesting thing. And all of this goes to what I've mentioned before, which I call smart reach. What do I need? When do I need it? You know, where do I need it? I need it passively. I need it to suggest to me all of this information. This is the standard now. And if you're behind the curve, you know, you're just not going to be competitive in terms of these kinds of environments. So where are my friends? Who's attending this event? You know, who's going to the conference? I mentioned eavesdrop before. What's going on at this particular venue? Here's a group utility. These are all kinds of different things that permit us to create on the fly little niches, little social networks that we build ourselves for the people that we're interested in, for just our company, for just our organization, for just our portfolio companies. All of these kinds of things are now available, and frankly, we're going to see more and more of those as we go. I used to say that if something didn't save time or money or increase my productivity, it wasn't a business. What we didn't take into account is a new set of behavior drivers. The principal one is status, and the idea that now my status, my position, is something that matters to a frightening extent. It used to be that we knew status mattered always. We didn't know we could attribute it, we could monitor it, we could award it, we could publish it, but now we can. And so even money maxes out. But we're doing a project for Amway, and frankly, if you're next door neighbor and you are competing Amway distributors and the system says that she's 3 bottles ahead of you and it's the last day of the month, you're not trying to go sell 4 bottles because you make 14 cents. You want to beat her ass, right? So this idea of measuring influence is increasingly important across a lot of different tools. In the marketing space, clout is one where they're actually figuring out that instead of randomly giving people rewards, you should focus on the people that have the biggest megaphones, the people that can actually make a difference. And those are the people that you want to incentivize and reward, okay? And ultimately, it's those people that step up and advocate your brand authentically, and they're the most valuable advocates that you could have. So cred is another one, peer perks, all of these things go to this new world of badges and this new idea that basically, you know, we have 2 things going on. One is FOMO, which is fear of missing out, okay? And this is particularly a New York disease. It's like whatever you're doing, somebody somewhere is doing something cooler and better, right? And you wish you were there, but, you know, so don't let it completely diminish the experience. Not true tonight, by the way, but as a theory, you got the best deal tonight. Anyway, So manufactured addiction, this idea that somebody says you're number 95 on a list, nobody wants to be number 95 on a list. So you get busy and you do whatever the tasks are. So more and more systems combine achievements with what your peers are doing, with the people that you care about, the people who influence your behavior. The Nike Fuel Band, if you have not gone to a technology conference lately and seen guys at the bar doing this, okay? Now, you may have certain things that you associated with that gesture. What you don't know is they're pumping their Nike Fuel Band to add points to their activities, because at the end of the month, they're going to want to say, boy, I ran a zillion miles, okay? It's complete bullshit. But that's how we care now. That's how we keep score in a lot of different ways. We build games. We spend a huge amount of time around the psychology games. I don't think I want to spend a lot of time on games, but I want to tell you one thing that's really important. First of all, gamers are old folks, okay? Gamers are wealthy folks, okay? Gamers are a dream for marketers, okay? And, you know, it's sad for the real farmers in the world. There's only about 1.3 million of them. There's about 80 million virtual farmers. Far bigger economy on Farmville than in the U.S. agriculture. But all the brands are moving into these worlds of games. But here's what we really learned, and this bears on every business, okay? We learned in the game world that on a social game context, there are 3 drivers, okay? The first is investment, which is how much do I want to spend on this game at this instant in time? The second one is how committed, how long do I want to spend? And the third is the value of this, how important is this experience to me? Now, what this means is that we're not going to have fixed pricing, okay? We're in a world, I'll go backwards if you want to take a picture, that's all right. Anyway, too late. We're not going to have a world where it's one size fits all. Everything is going to be micro-flexible pricing, okay? Everything is going to permit the consumer to determine the value, the pricing, the duration of the relationship. And so the good news is this is really significant, because you don't have to guess that sweet spot. You don't have to guess one price. You can offer a myriad amount of different prices, different opportunities, but it's a real challenge in terms of management, pricing and information and all of this kind of stuff. But that's where we're headed. Where the world of one size, one price, one offering fits everybody is over. I mentioned video, just again, a couple of sites that are really significant. Keek is one. These are 15-second videos. Tout is another one, which is curated. This is what's going to drive concerts now. This is what's going to drive communication. This is what the kids are sharing. They're over, you know, sort of static photos. They're sharing everything on these short-form videos. Vine has been captured by a lot of celebrities now. The celebrities are doing sort of little artworks on Vine. We're into a new world where you can make a living, literally a collaborative living, in really important ways. This was in the New York Times. These people have millions and millions of subscribers, okay, and billions of views, and they get paid. They get paid by Google. They get paid by other people to sell advertising against these populations that they build. So this is what we're calling collaborative commerce. We're contributors. We're contributing our eyes, our engagement, our attention to these videos, but these people are now building businesses. This manicure lady who's over here, Michelle Phan, this is a huge thing that she's doing. She gives makeup tips to millions of kids or millions of women, and it's a whole living. And what's so amazing about the niche world is you don't have to hit tens of millions of home runs. You can have a living, you can make a good business out of hundreds of thousands of subscribers now, never possible before, because there are virtually no costs other than your time associated with that. So we're also, on Christmas morning, we're never again going to read some pidgin English set of instructions and hope that we can put the bicycle together. We're all going to a website. We're all going to watch step-by-step videos, okay? We're all going to finally see Microsoft integrate Skype, which they bought, seems like 1 trillion years ago, into frigging Outlook. So we'll have net meetings, right? Net meetings is something Microsoft announced 30 years ago, all right? But we're going to do that all by video. We're going to see, finally, emails that come with activated videos right off the top. And again, if you haven't seen this site, this is called Shout Roulette, and it lets you chew out some asshole for almost any reason. It's a really interesting thing. It's very cathartic. I highly recommend it. But anyway, all right. So last, sort of how will work, and where is work headed in this porous workplace? And I mentioned this idea that it's more important to be in real time than in any real place. This you may have seen. This is the guy who farmed out his job. He was making like $200,000. He hired like 6 people in China for like $8 an hour to do, QA work. And in the meantime, he was at home watching these videos. He watched a lot of cat videos, a lot of stuff like that. So they finally found him out. I mean, I don't know how, but he was doing this for months and months. So anyway, think of this. Think of how exciting the opportunity is that we have a chance to recapture literally hundreds of millions of man-hours that are just wasted now, because we can reach out in new ways, in very powerful new ways, to a workforce that's anywhere. And we can take those people, those scraps of time, and we can make you productive on the train, productive when you're waiting. So when you see systems like TaskRabbit, what's interesting is the population of these sites that permit you to farm out just about any task. Okay? But the composition is amazing. 4,000 rabbits so far. It hasn't been around that long. It's only in a couple of cities. But look at the demographics, and if you can't see it, shame on you. It's 12% is young female professionals, college students, retirees, stay-at-home moms, okay? Hundreds, millions probably of people with advanced degrees are home for a variety of reasons. They can now be accessed. Amazon, always ahead of the game. So Mechanical Turk, early on, a system that permitted you, let's say you have 50,000 photographs and you want somebody to tell you what the content is of each photograph. This is a system. You send it to Amazon, they ship it to a zillion people, you pay them 2 cents a photograph, and in a matter of weeks, you've got the answer to something that the computers may never solve. Okay, so the ability to create tasks, to distribute them worldwide, ChoreMart, 99 Designs, and then we have all the crowdsourcing and crowdfunding kinds of initiatives as well. And Quirky is one that's based on products built. But the whole idea here is that the crowd, there are enormous values and there are enormous opportunities to scale your business in amazing ways if you're smart about incentives, smart about how you deliver these things, smart about QA as well. Quality control is going to be significant, but staying on top of this stuff is really exciting. And the last new site, everybody knows this scene, this is You've Lost That Loving Feeling from Top Gun, but I recommend Wing Woman, okay, which if you're a douchebag, okay, you hire a woman through this site who's really good looking to go to the bar with you, and the other women there figure out, hey, how bad could this guy be, right? This nice-looking woman is with him. So this is yet another new service, pretty small niche, pretty interesting business. And finally, just as to social media, the world of social media, you got to be in it. You got to do it. You can't let it drive your entire business. You should start small. You should find people who want to do it. You should talk about things you know about. Stick to your knitting. And believe me, if people aren't enjoying it and don't want to do it, they're going to be lousy at it and you're going to fail. But if you do find the right people, it's the most effective, the most inexpensive, and the most powerful new set of technologies that we've seen in at least a couple of decades. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Howard, thank you. That was fabulous. I know I learned a lot. I hope you all did too. Please join us for cocktails, refreshments, and social hour. And again, Howard, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure.